5 years ago, during the infamous COVID-19 pandemic, I was in a Zoom call receiving an official honor from the Princess of Saudi Arabia because I just ranked first in the country for high school. But what nobody knew during that time and what is, while doing all of that and working so hard to be ranked first in the country, I was also managing a very severe case of ADHD. There's this big misconception that high top achievers always means that they are type A people. But the truth is, that doesn't mean anything. You don't have to be a neurotypical robot, type A person to be a top achiever. You don't need an insane 12-hour schedule to be placed and ranked the first in a country. But you have to build a high efficiency system to accommodate the type of brain you have, the chaotic ADHD brain, to exploit what you work best at, rather than trying to use another system that was built for a brain that isn't yours. So today I'm gonna talk about how I ranked first in the country for high school. Okay, so first let's talk about transitions. ADHD brains hate transitioning from a state to another. Our brain just doesn't do that. Our brain is like, oh, what the hell? We have to now transition from home to school? No, nuh-uh. That's not gonna happen. That's why I like to separate where I study from where I sleep, because that means I'm always gonna pass out. If I study on my bed, that means I'm gonna sleep. I'm not gonna study because my brain is like, ooh, bed. That means nighty night. So you know what I mean? We are terrible. And I bet some neurotypical people do experience this, but at least I think it's part of my ADHD. Anyways, so we transition terribly. What does that mean? Schools provide a built-in, high dopamine, socially accountable environment. That's literally what schools are. But the moment you leave that environment, the momentum dies. You don't have that built-in structure. You don't have that dopamine high because you're trying to be the best. I was trying to be the best and I was trying to get as many awards as I could because it felt as a challenge to me that I wanted to do. I wanted to be the best. Kind of works in a way because it does work in the INCUP framework because challenge is a part of it. But that's for another video. So what does that mean? That means take advantage of that system. What I used to do when I was in high school is I tried to eliminate homework. How did I do that? I did my homework at school. I took advantage of every moment that I was not doing anything and just did my homework. I practiced, I reviewed during those moments where I didn't have anything rather than hanging out with friends. Even though we were a group of nerds, so we all reviewed, but that's besides the point. So what we did is that we were trying to just finish everything. So when we go home, our home still remains a sanctuary for us to do whatever we want other than study. Another thing that we continue on the same point is that the dopamine crash. A couple of months ago, there was this trend all over TikTok about how don't sit down. If you're doing something with ADHD, do not sit down. Do not be like, oh, I'll wash 2 dishes and then I'm gonna go sit down. Don't. Because if you sit down, you're never getting up again. This idea comes from that trend, even though I used to do it before even knowing about this trend. My brain figured it out before. Yeah, my brain does a lot of weird things and coping, which shows you the amazing thing about the human mind. We do figure out ways to do stuff. Anyways, so to avoid that dopamine crash, to avoid that sit down feeling, rather than coming home, sitting down, taking off my uniform, taking off my shoes, eating lunch, doing what normal students do after they get home, I don't allow my brain to go into rest or stop mode. I stop it beforehand and I'm like, no, don't do that. Rather than doing that, let's do some active recall. Let's study, let's test ourselves. I always let my sisters or a tutor test me on the material I learned that day beforehand. What did that allow me to use my brain without having to restart the engine, because I already was in go mode because I was just at school. So when I just came back home, I did have rest on the way commuting here, but as soon as I got home, I studied. That means that I took a huge task and removed it at the start of the day. So I had the rest of the day free. So what does that do? That literally just bypasses the crash entirely. Before changing my clothes, before everything, I just did it. I quizzed myself immediately. I did the studying immediately. So what does that mean? I didn't have to do anything else the rest of the day. And it bypassed one of the biggest problems we have as ADHDers, which is paralysis and executive dysfunction. So it's just an amazing trick that I still use till this day in college. Another thing that I just figured out what it was body doubling. I used to do it even before knowing what it's called, and that's essentially the thing of doing a task around somebody else that is doing something, like cleaning while somebody else is cleaning, and you just get the urge to clean because somebody else is cleaning. That's literally body doubling. And in a way, why it works is because it turns it into fun in a way. It just turns that person into a silent anchor that prevents your mind from wandering or from drifting down another rabbit hole about the secret lives of Mormon wives. Anyways, but it just is an anchor. It's a very important anchor. I used to do it with my mom. My mom would be doing anything in the living room. I would just sit there, put my headphones on, and just study while I'm there, rather than studying in my room upstairs, because it just didn't make me drift away. It made me very present. And it's such just a good trick to do. There's so many videos online on body doubling, and I'll make a video soon about body doubling and how to do it the correct way. Not only that, but also like you can have the video playing while you're body doubling, and it works. It does work. Some people don't like it. That's entirely fine, but why not give it a try? Because you have the chance. So try that. Another thing I did was weaponizing urgency. Our ADHD brains like to wait till last moment. Unfortunately, that's just the truth of how our brain works. You cannot do anything about it, even if you wanted to. So what does that mean? Use it to your advantage rather than trying to accept it. Just accept that urgency is a tool rather than a flaw. Intentionally compress some stuff or some study timelines to trigger that sense of urgency so you get your peak cognitive performance. Not only that, but you hyper focus because of urgency and you don't spill into panic. So utilize the urgency. Try to make stuff also feel urgent beforehand by putting deadlines with somebody else, because we are people pleasers in our hearts, so we don't want to disappoint people. So it works. Take advantage of not wanting to disappoint people. Best advice ever. Anyways, but yes, take advantage of that urgency. So last thing I want to talk about is during test day. Test day is such a nerve-wracking thing. It's because at least I do struggle with a lot of test anxiety. So how do I deal with it? One thing I do is sensory anchoring. I call it the gum trick. I love chewing gum. If I see gum, I'm gonna chew it. So what did I do is that I would have a specific flavor. It was like an Arabic brand and it was cinnamon flavor. I love cinnamon, but I always only did it for this trick because I just don't get the chance to eat some cinnamon gum that much. So what do I do with it is I would chew on that flavor while I'm studying and also while I'm taking the test. What does this do? This is actually scientific. I didn't know it was scientific before doing it, but it is. So what does this happen? It matches the sensory input into your brain and it actually triggers a state-dependent memory, making information way easier to retrieve during the exam just because you're chewing a gum. And it's such an easy thing to do, especially in a way it stops you feeling that pressure. It makes it so much easier to be able to retrieve that memory under pressure, and it's such a simple thing to do. You don't need an expensive piece of gum. You literally just need a $1 gum. You just need to keep the same gum for studying while doing on the exam and you're fine. I never had trouble with teachers being mad about it, just because I don't chew loudly, so usually they do not notice, but it works. And I would say take advantage of everything you can take advantage of, even just chewing some gum. Another thing is I had a strict rule of no cramming. So I learned this the hard way. I used to always cram till the last minute before the test. But one day, what happened is I was studying till last minute and I forgot this small detail about something. I don't even remember the question anymore, but I remember what happened. It was such a small, irrelevant detail that I stressed about the whole time before the exam. And turns out it was not even relevant to the test. Like I went inside the test and it was nothing. It was just wasted energy over such a simple fact that it just derailed me studying everything else. And that hurt me more than just studying things other things more. And that's why I'm always like, do not cram till the day before. Don't stress yourself out on the day of the exam because you're already stressed. You're already scared of the test. So why pressure yourself into more stress by trying to cram till last minute and trying to test yourself last minute? It's not a good idea. At least give yourself an hour before the exam to just clear your brain and try to recoup yourself and just hype yourself up because you deserve the hype. So why does this trick specifically work? Because it's weird. Like, what do you mean don't cram? Like, ADHDers love cramming. Like, we do everything last second. Why does this work? It's because in a sense you are protecting your working memory from a cholesterol spike of something. Like, why does this matter for ADHDers? It's because you're protecting your working memory from a cholesterol. Why stress yourself out before the exam? It doesn't make sense. It's more valuable to not be stressed than any last minute studying, any last minute information that you may remember or may be on the test. So just try to be relaxed and be focused rather than taking a panicked brain with you during the test. That is way more worth it. Anyways, your brain is not broken. Please, this video doesn't mean that your brain is broken. It's the furthest thing away from that. It just means that you just need a completely different system. You don't have to work like everybody else. You don't have to work as much as everybody else. I always looked at people, I'm like, they spend 6 hours a day studying. I never did. I never spent 6 hours studying in my life during one day. My brain just doesn't do that, especially continuous. What are you talking about? Like, that's not gonna happen. Like 4 hours of those 6 hours is not gonna be studying. It's gonna be doing something else. But that's the point. I didn't need to do that to achieve something so great. So why force yourself to do that? It doesn't make sense. So please don't let society dictate how you study. You know yourself best. Try as many tricks as you can and stick with the ones that work for you. You don't have to use everything and you don't have to discard everything. Anyways, I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share. Not only that, but you can watch my last video on the paradox of being ambitious while having ADHD. Anyways, in this channel, I'm gonna talk more about how me, an ADHD that is a high achiever, tries to live in the world of medicine while having a neurodivergent brain. So please, you can always join the channel and be a part of the community. Anyways, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please join the community. I am so grateful to have you here. Anyways, goodbye and see you later.